What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Spread Nesson's Sports Betting Podcast. I'm Ricky Doyle, joined by, well, we don't have Mike Cole this week, so your eyes do not deceive you.
Yeah.
An honorary guest, honorary use, Keagan Stiefel. Welcome to the show, Keagan.
Thanks for having me. I feel like Nesson's resident Ish Smith. I just kind of bounce around.
Yeah, you are very versatile. I'll give you that.
Throw me here and there.
Pump your tires right out of the gate. You do a little bit of everything. You've been on the Foxborough Rush podcast recently, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point.
Yeah.
You can give us some NFL observations. But what we're going to do, we're going to test your knowledge on all sports, though. So we'll whip around, do a little bit. I will say, though, when we came in, so now I'm usually, you pointed this out, I'm not really running the point, being the point guard of this podcast. We play positionless podcast here. Usually it's Mike, the one that's sort of teeing me up. I'm kind of doing it for you now.
Cool.
So when I came in, I'm like, do I sit on my usual side of the table where I'm sure that my ass cheeks are firmly ingrained in this seat, or do I go over to that side? So I opted for my normal side. So, but if you want to switch like mid-show or something, that's cool too.
I've adjusted Mike's seat already, and I'm sure I'm going to hear about it next
You will.
time he's in the office. But I'll do my best to do the Mike Cole, give you a little snarky comment every once in a while.
Yep.
Keep everybody on their toes.
Yeah, so Mike's on vacation, I think. Who knows? I think he's probably sipping a mocktail somewhere, maybe. Although Mike strikes me as a guy who probably exercises on vacation.
Yeah, he's a water guy for sure.
Yeah, he is. He probably takes
sure everybody knows
big pool guy.
Yeah. Poolside water.
Yeah, he's probably staying active. When I go on vacation, I'm more of a slug, just trying to get through it.
Eating steak on a stone in Pittsburgh.
100%, yeah. So Mike's on vacay. He should be back next week. I think I will say another thing I wanted to point out to you was that we are in the midst of a little bit of a heat wave here in the Boston area. So I almost wore shorts to the office today. I did not, because I said Keagan will tear me to shreds. He said that is a fashion faux pas in the Offers game. So I went with jeans.
When I first started here, I was like, "Are shorts allowed?" I started in May. It was hot. I decided to go with the khakis, and then I looked around, and as an office full of people who talk about sports, everybody was wearing khakis.
Yep.
Khaki pants.
Yeah, big khaki community.
I've slowly drifted into the jeans territory. I'm getting a little less formal as we go. By year 3, I'm sure I'm going to be rocking basketball shorts to the
bathing
office.
suit.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
It's hot outside. We'll go run through the sprinkler.
Get your board shorts.
Bit. Yeah, get a boogie board on the desk.
There you go.
Just to really get the vibe going. It's the way it should be.
Yeah. Well, look, if you made the transition this week, I wouldn't have blamed you. We got the a holiday, 90 degrees. Yep. It's a parade week in Boston, which I think we'll start there. Yeah. That seems to make the most sense. Not sure if you heard, but the basketball team in Boston, the Celtics of the National Basketball Association, just won the NBA Finals.
National champs.
The national champs, yeah. I saw that making the rounds in the local airwaves. But I don't know. Where do you want to start with this? I guess, all right, I guess I'll pose this question to you just right off the top. What is sort of your one big takeaway, if you want to call it that, from either the finals or just the Celtics team or the season, wherever you want to go with it, but just what is your natural inclination to think of the Celtics team?
Kind of like a, kind of thing. It's tough for it's been 6-7 years when we've been talking about, like, is this the year? Because they're set up to do it, and then they don't get it done, and then it's break up the Jays, trade somebody. Marcus Smart got traded, and you were either crying or you were cheering in the streets. It was just a lot of negativity around the team, even though they were, if you look at the numbers, I think regular season-wise and playoff-wise, they have more wins than anybody else in the last decade. But now no one can really complain. I think we're going to get a solid 7 or 8 days of enjoying it, and then it's going to go to, Tatum's contract, and what does that mean for Derek White's contract? But the big thing for me, the one big takeaway is definitely just all right, we get a week.
Relief.
Just relax.
That's what it is, right? It's not even obviously it's a joyous occasion in this region of the country, but it is. There's a level of relief to it. I mean, even when they were up 3-0 in that series, and then you had the blowout loss in Game 4, I think that most people are viewed that as probably just a hiccup en route to what would eventually be a championship. But there was still that slight moment of hesitation, like, oh, is this? Could we have a problem on our hands if they drop Game 5?
Yeah, I think around these parts too. It's around here. I think we all understand that, like, they lose Game 4 and it's not that big of a deal. They'll be all right. But Boston is just such an irrational sports fan base in general, where you lose one and it's like, well, last year they went to Game 7 after they were down 0-3. What makes you think they can't go to Game 7 now that they're up? And it's just like, those 2 days were rough to just sit through and have to listen to people try to convince themselves that the world was going to explode when it was fine.
I think one of my other sort of just, I guess, takeaways from this thing is Joe Mazzulla like the perfect coach for this particular team? Like, he's a guy that, I mean, I was probably lower on him than most throughout the entire season. And then, like, you just, at some point, you just got to kind of accept your fate as, like, this is working. He clearly is. I mean, in that league, that sport, more than anything, it's just like, can the head coach just stay out of the way? Not shoot yourself in the foot, right, which clearly did a good job of. But I thought there were various points throughout the playoffs too where he was a factor. Like, they had an advantage on the sidelines, which I don't think I would have said last year or at various points throughout this season. So I just think with his willingness to sort of stick to his guns with regards to his philosophy, both offensively and defensively. I think he's got buy-in clearly from his players, and he's an interesting cat. But I think that
to say the least.
I think like the team sort of embraces that about him, and it is like it's a little refreshing.
Yeah, I think he kind of bridges the gap between Stevens and Ime Udoka, where Stevens was just like, say what you will, he was a good coach, obviously. He won a lot. But the relatability for a guy, look at him, you know what I mean? Like, they're not going to be like, oh, Brad, he played like Division III basketball.
Yeah.
He's a coach. And then Ime was such a hard ass on them, and it worked. Like, right after the All-Star break, when they hit a little bit of a skid, obviously, everybody remembers, they were right around 500, and then they rattled off like 25 out of 28 or whatever it was, and roll into the playoffs, go to the finals, whatever it was in his 1 year there. There's a mix. Mazzulla's going on podcasts. Maybe he should come on one of ours.
That'd be nice.
Joe.
That'd be nice.
But, he's on podcasts, and he's telling jokes, and he talks about, he kind of embraces how much of a lunatic he is, which I think everybody can appreciate. Like, the players know he's a little crazy, and he takes things a little too far, but he's steadfast in his beliefs, so you buy into that. Yeah. When you know a guy believes his own bullshit, you're gonna follow it.
Yeah, they have their this roster is assembled, already had the experience, it has the leadership, so you want that basketball mind like a guy that was with this team through thick and thin as well. It's not like he was an outside hire, like he's been with these guys, so. I think he had sort of that baseline relationships with a lot of those players, and then just his basketball acumen sort of helped accentuate their strengths and probably minimize their weaknesses. So it seemed to work. I think it was just like you kind of looked at it from a philosophical standpoint, like, all right, jacking up all these threes, is this going to work? But you just get to a certain point, and you're like, all right, I guess we're doing this, right? Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see if other teams across the league sort of try to replicate what the Celtics have done, because sure, it's a unique style that proved successful, but I also think that they had the horses to do it. Right. Like, they were uniquely suited to be able to play that brand of basketball, whereas I don't know if necessarily you're going to be able to do that with other teams across the league. Like, their talent met the philosophy perfectly.
And they built the team in a way that we're not going to get into the weeds of like CBA and all that stuff, but coming up,
why not?
Now, like, bird rights, guys.
Yeah,
the bird rights. But the way they built it, and by doing it this year, to where they have the rights to give Kristaps Porzingis more money than anybody else, and they have the rights to give Derek White more money than anybody else. So it gives them an advantage to where maybe they're going to have to spend the money no matter what. Like, their payroll is going to be absurd. But Wyc Grousbeck has said, yeah, as long as we keep winning, I'm ready to go. You know what I mean? I'll pay whatever it costs. So they're set up for, if he's willing to stick by his word, to be successful.
It is sort of the perfect blend from an on-court perspective, clearly, as we just mentioned, but also like contractually,
right?
Ages, like guys in their prime at the perfect time. Like it is pretty impressive how they've been able to build this thing where all of the stars sort of aligned. Right. But that raises the question, like, they are the heavy favorites to repeat next season. Can they do it? Will they do it? Do they need to make any changes this offseason? Because this is the one thing that you sort of learned about the NBA in recent years, is just when you think you have it figured out, something happens.
Right.
Somebody demands a trade.
Yeah.
Or, somebody, there's a huge injury. Obviously, that was the case in the Eastern Conference this year. So there's just a lot of variables that a lot of times you cannot foresee that just pop up out of nowhere. But like I said, when you look at it right now, particularly from a betting standpoint, the Celtics are heavy favorites to win the NBA Finals next year. They are plus 300, 3-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook as of this recording. Second shortest odds belong to the Denver Nuggets at plus 750. So where do you stand on this? Do they repeat next year? And if so, like, you willing to put your money where your mouth is?
Yeah, I love the 3-1 odds, because to me, when I look at that, I think, all right, I have 3 other shots at it. Because like the 3-1, you throw that down, and then you could throw some other bets on teams you like, and you feel pretty comfortable that you're at least going to make your money back. Awful way to bet, because the Lakers come out of nowhere and win the championship, and then you're out 4 times the money that you might already be putting in. But I would feel comfortable where, if I'm putting money on the Celtics, I would feel comfortable to sprinkle some elsewhere. I wrote down, in the Eastern Conference, I think the Bucks are like year 2 of Giannis and Dame. They can add some. I think they need to add some depth on the bench. And what's up with Chris Middleton? Is he ever going to be able to stay on the court? But talent-wise, that's the only team that can compete with you.
Yeah,
I think Indiana's a great team, but they mopped the floor with them, and there's no upgrades that are coming to Indiana unless it's through the draft. So I like the Celtics at 310, and then you start looking at, like, Minnesota has a really good number. What's that, 10-1?
FanDuel, they are plus 850.
850? Okay, so, and then 750, like you said, for Denver. So those 3 teams right there, you feel confident that you can make a little bit of money on those 3.
Yeah, I think with the Celtics, if you want them, or if you feel like they're going to repeat, the play is probably to maybe wait a little bit in the hopes that somebody else sort of beefs up, particularly in the Eastern Conference. Like, a team I'm looking at is the Sixers, where they're sitting at 12-1 right now. They've got some money to spend. I think the breakout you saw from Tyrese Maxey to go along with Embiid, if he can stay healthy, obviously. But, like, that's a team that looks like they're nearing sort of inflection point. Like, this is a crucial offseason for them. If they go out and they bring in, they could bring in LeBron James. Right. Or Paul George, another guy who
that's the name that's
splashy. I think if you see a move like that from a team like the Sixers, their odds are going to drop a little bit, and there might be that sort of, the other side of that coin is that the Celtics odds will, be indirectly impacted by that, or directly impacted. So, like, I don't think it's going to change a ton. Like, maybe you get the Celtics at 4-1 versus 3-1, but. Right. Still, I mean, it's still a little extra value for you to wait. Whereas right now, fresh off the title, not sure you're getting them at a good price point here.
Making a bet before August is just a fool's game. Yeah, because the numbers jump so much. The recency bias is very real now.
The other way to maybe play it is that you take the Celtics at 3-1 or whatever they end up settling on before the regular season, and then parlaying that with something else. Right. This is a similar conversation that me and Mike had last week, I think it was. I don't know, they all blend together at this point, but I think it was last week, about Scottie Scheffler and him going into all these PGA tournaments is like the overwhelming favorite. I think he was about 3-1 or plus 350 going in the U.S. Open, and then obviously barely makes the cut, naturally. But we were kicking around like, okay, if you do like Scheffler, maybe you pair that with something else. I did see a tweet earlier that somebody had the Celtics to win this past championship, and parlayed it with a Cole Kmet anytime touchdown versus the Washington Commanders back in October.
Right.
So I'm not sure I'd want to tie up all of my money on a futures bet like that. But, hey, those are the options you have when you're in the betting game.
I kind of like the idea because me and Mike have actually had this conversation too where we hate futures bets because it sits in your slip. And you look at your open bets and you're like, I made this bet 4 months ago. And then most of the time it's not going to hit.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
especially like individual awards and stuff.
Yeah,
like I got a few.
My Jason Tatum MVP thing was staring me in the face for months, and I did not enjoy it. It wasn't fun.
The worst is like when you zero in on like an individual award, the player's having a really strong year, and so you're like, I had a good read on that, but he's not quite at the point where you can turn that into a profit. Like I'm kind of there with like I got an AL Cy Young ticket on Carlos Rodon.
Okay.
And he's having a pretty good year, but he's not quite in Cy Young territory. And
I
stare at that in my account every so often.
It's
and
brutal.
I'm like,
so at least
what do I do with this?
If you throw the Cole Kmet touchdown on there and then he doesn't score, it's like, whatever. It's out.
Yep.
And then he scores and then you sit there. I think that's brutal. But I don't hate that idea. And I do think, while we're on the topic of the NBA, with MVP odds, I personally feel I have a much better read on that than the finals because anything can happen team-wise. Obviously, free agency hasn't even opened up yet. But individual players, with the way that particular award is voted on, it's a popularity contest.
Yep.
And sometimes it goes the opposite way where they've given it to somebody so many times that they're like, we're not giving it to – it might not matter what Jokic does this year. He's going to need to break records to get a fourth MVP in 5 years. It's just not the way they operate.
Well, so he is the favorite right now.
Yeah.
Plus 340 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Followed it by Luka Doncic at plus 380. Giannis sitting there at plus 550. Anybody stand out to you from that standpoint, just either up top or even looking down the board if you want to get a little frisky?
I think you can move down because I wrote down
Jason
here.
Tatum at 19-1, by the way.
I've
been burned.
You
fell into that trap.
I've been burned by the Jason Tatum MVP ticket. I don't think Jokic, Embiid, or Giannis, I don't think they're itching to give those guys another MVP. They've made up the last, 6? Those three players. So I really like Anthony Edwards at DraftKings is 12-1.
I think you're just falling right back. I think you're falling into the Tatum trap, but just with a different guy.
But this is, I look at the list. Doncic is he's the favorite to me. That's the guy who I think is going to win the MVP. And like I did earlier with the throwing it on multiple things, just trying to make a little bit of money, it's dumb. But if you do it,
as long as you acknowledge that.
Yeah, I'm going to acknowledge when I'm being an idiot. But with Doncic plus 370, and then you pick another guy just to back yourself a little bit, maybe get better value than the Doncic pick. Doncic and Anthony Edwards. Doncic 370 at DraftKings. Anthony Edwards 12-1 at DraftKings. I think if I had to bet right now, it's one of those two guys. So why not throw money on both and make a few dollars?
Just to add a little Celtics context, like I said, Jason Tatum 19-1. If you want to go way down the board, you got Jaylen Brown at 140-1.
Jesus.
Not a bet I would advise you to make, but nevertheless, it is there from a Celtics standpoint.
I mean, he's winning MVP awards all over the place.
It's true. Yeah, he's on a run here. And that would be the next one, right? So they don't have first half MVP. So yeah, you might as well take a stab at it. Yes, yeah, I wouldn't mind leaning towards somebody like Giannis or Embiid. It just sort of them coming back, staying healthy, and reminding you just how good they are. I think that there's Giannis to me it plus 550 and. Who knows, that number could fluctuate a little bit like that. Yeah, I might take a whack at that. As far as I think once you get past that top portion of the board, it's really tough to identify somebody. Really, you're going to see somebody come out of nowhere and win NBA MVP.
Usually it's the year before. The whole thing with Anthony Edwards is this was his year to
gradual progression
explode onto the scene, and it was too late. Obviously, it was mostly playoff stuff, so too late to win the MVP this year, and he wouldn't have. Jokic was unbelievable, but now he's on everybody's radar. You see in there, if him and Minnesota go out and they have another great regular season, and Karl Anthony Towns continues to miss every three he takes, but they still have a good year, I think Anthony Edwards is a solid pick.
What about Victor Wembanyama? He do anything for you?
So if
team just not going to be good
if
enough?
he wasn't on the worst team in the NBA,
Yeah.
I've had this argument in this office particularly.
This is why I asked.
Yeah,
I know your background.
I'm a Victor guy. I said he was going to live up to the hype. Some people believe the hype was best player of all time, better than Michael Jordan. I don't quite think it was there. I think he's going to win a MVP. Maybe two. I don't think he's going to win it anytime soon with Devin Vassell as his second best player. That's just not the way that works.
I like that you call him Victor. I'm going to start calling him Vic. Vic Wembanyama.
Wembanyama. I like that.
That's why I got to call him Vic. I can't get the last name out. Victor Wembanyama. Ja Morant, 50-1. Yeah. You like that at all?
Well, he's only going to play 45 games. So he's still suspended? They didn't pull that back, right?
I don't know, but it just seems like that team has got nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think Giannis is probably the guy for me, but
okay.
I could be talked into Embiid as well. Celtics, I mentioned their NBA Finals odds. If you just want to zero in on the Eastern Conference, they're plus 125 to win the East, followed by the Bucks at 4-1, the Sixers at 7-1. Knicks plus 750, Heat 12-1, Cavaliers 17-1. I think that this, like we said at the top, like the Celtics are uniquely positioned to sustain the success for a little bit. And yeah, if you like them, I would wait on the number, but I mean, I certainly wouldn't blame you for putting your eggs in that basket.
They're baiting fan bases with those numbers. Like Cleveland at 17. Cleveland's not going to win the East. It's just not going to happen. But with such a big number, their fans can convince themselves. New head coach coming in. If Donovan Mitchell isn't shipped to New York within the next 2.5 weeks, that's just smart business by the sports books. They know what they're doing.
Yep. One team I am kind of interested in. I don't think they win the East, but they might be a year away. The Orlando Magic.
Yeah.
40-1 to win the East. They got some salary cap space. Like, they might be able to build something
If
there.
you could bet on somebody to just be the Pacers this year, I think it's the Magic.
Sure.
Sneak their way into the Eastern Conference Finals. The Celtics were once this team. You know what I mean? Like, they had the young pieces. They were without their two stars the year they went and lost to LeBron in Cleveland in 2018, but it happens every 2 or 3 years. You get this team. Indiana back in 2012 with Roy Hibbert and Paul George. It happens, especially in the East because it's usually so top-heavy where a team can snake their way in there. So I like Orlando to make it to the East.
It's too bad.
They're just not going to win it.
You know, we say how we don't like tying money up in certain futures bets,
right.
But it's too bad you can't make a play for who's going to win the championship in 3 years.
That'd be great.
Play the real long game
Paolo
here, final
Banchero,
boss style.
2029 NBA MVP. I'd be all over that.
I guess one more thing on the Celtics is like you said, well positioned, got all these guys under contract. This offseason might simply be a matter of giving Tatum the max deal.
Right.
Derek White's got an extension coming up. Any big changes? Do you need to make changes?
No.
I mean,
if it ain't broke.
Yeah, but
you know
I don't I guess I'd like to see him add a little some center depth, maybe another forward.
I was going to say if there's
some margin plays
if there's a spot, you've got a guy who's perpetually injured in Kristaps Porzingis, who I think we all have a new appreciation for what he is as a player.
Yep.
After watching him for a full season, but
maybe trade him.
He can't stay on the court.
You know,
I'm not so much on the trade him aspect. Al Horford's going to be 39. He's coming back according to Wick, but having a 39-year-old center back up your perpetually injured center is probably not great business.
Yeah.
Is Nehemias Queta going to take a huge leap forward? I don't know. I doubt Luke Cornett's coming back. All due respect to Luke, I think he's a great watch in April against Atlanta. It's awesome watching him go up and get the lobs, but I think they can find a third center that isn't a typical third center, a guy who's actually going to play 20 minutes a night, because obviously back-to-backs, you're not going to have Horford and Porzingis available.
Just because I know this is something that's when we try to figure out where this Celtics team fits among Celtics greats and just NBA all-time great teams, stacking them up against 08.
I love it.
Where do you stand on that?
So this always pisses people off when I have this conversation. I was 9.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
So I'm probably asking the wrong guy.
Rajon Rondo is my favorite basketball player of all time. I was at the age, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So I'm always going to be like, that '08 team was Leon Poe. This team doesn't have a Leon Poe. Leon Poe is sick. He scored like 23 against LA in Game 5. He was unbelievable. I think the depth on that '08 team was very impressive.
Yep.
The Celtics went 7, maybe 8 deep this year, depending on if Porzingis was in the lineup. That '08 team went 11 deep. You know what I mean? Like, the only guys that weren't playing were Scott Pollard and Brian Scalabrine.
Yeah, but I was trying to think as well, like, if you were to take both teams, mix them up in a big bowl with a big spoon, and just and just have them in a blender.
Yeah, I hear you.
And then we do a draft. I don't know how that applies to a draft.
I think it's a great idea.
Where does everybody go? Like, who's the top pick?
I've got a big board. I don't know
you do have a big board.
Yeah, I don't know if you have a big board.
No, but I'm.
Do you want me to read the big board, or do you want to draft?
I can. No. Just who you got? Let me hear your big board.
Okay, 1 through 11, because I think there are 11
So you
starting.
took both teams. This is both teams.
Both teams. Yep.
08, 24 Celtics.
24. I think there's 11 quality starters.
All right.
Because the Celtics had 6 this year. Kevin Garnett's the best player.
Yeah, I think we can agree on that. One of the probably 15 to 20 best of all time.
I say Jason Tatum at 2.
Okay.
Jaylen Brown at 3. Pierce 4. Ray Allen 5. Pierce and Jaylen Brown are like
that 3 to 5 range is where things get a little tricky.
Yeah. For you or just in general?
I just think in general. I mean, maybe I'm on an island here.
Like I said, Pierce and Brown, you could swap them. Just
you also got to factor in, like, we're talking like primes here, right? Like, we're players at their peaks,
right?
Because, like,
maybe not just in '08, because Ray Allen can jump Paul Pierce if we're talking players in their peaks.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
Ray Allen was awesome.
Yeah, like, I agree. So that's why I'm.
So I'm kind of thinking just the year they won the championship, because a lot of these guys were in their prime.
You're projecting ahead too as to, like, what
right.
Jaylen Brown could be next year and years after, because,
I think
like,
he can get better.
Yeah.
Because
that's tough. Because I'm like, I put him ahead of Ray Allen.
For 8 years, he's just gotten better. Ray Allen was sick. He was awesome. Also, he was in the building the other night wearing a Celtics shirt.
Yeah.
Surprised he didn't get jumped. I know how much he's hated in Boston. He was just strolling around, no problem.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Good. Don't jump Ray Allen.
I thought they buried all that, didn't they?
Rajon Rondo would punch him in the face tomorrow.
Here's So, all right, I'll keep going with your list.
6, Drew Holiday. 7, Derek White. 8, Kristaps Porzingis. 9, Rondo. It hurts.
I think your Rondo's too low.
He's a team killer. From after he left the Celtics, he just killed franchises for 5 years.
But give me peak Rondo.
Peak Rondo. 08 Rondo?
Yeah.
If I could take Rondo and Kevin Garnett and shove the rest of them in a closet, I'd do it. Those are the two for me.
So, like, I agree. I think a Rondo versus Drew Holiday toss-up is a tough one. That's a great internet debate.
It's a great, because they're just so different as players. Like, Rondo set the table for everybody. Drew Holiday was just, like he says, he was the utility guy.
Yeah,
I'll just do everything that's not.
I love Drew Holiday. Like, one of my favorite athletes across any sport right now, I would say.
You couldn't have picked a better person to replace Marcus Smart.
Rondo is good.
I agree, but like I said, I think you took it at their peak thing. I'm taking a little bit of the year they won the championship, what they did for those teams.
Sure, he was still coming into his own at that point.
Yeah, he was his second year in the league, I believe. The third, maybe.
Fair point.
10, Al Horford. 11, he's not the 11th best player, but he was a starter. I have Kendrick Perkins. I think he's more around like 17 if we're taking the full team. I'll take Sam Hauser over Kendrick Perkins, especially 08 Kendrick Perkins.
All right. But the Celtics would have won another championship if Kendrick Perkins didn't get injured in
that's
whatever.
That's what everybody likes to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, it's accepted as fact around here.
Right. The Dwight Howard stopper, Kendrick Perkins, as we've long said. So that's my 11. Garnett, Tatum, Brown, Pierce, Allen, Holiday, White, Porzingis, Rondo, Horford, Perkins.
All right. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I'm
sure you don't like
one question, then we'll move on. Okay. We'll get to some other stuff because I did want to talk some maybe NFL offseason. Maybe we'll go there after. Okay. If the Celtics don't repeat as champions next year, it's because
Porzingis' foot falls off.
A nice amputation.
Yeah, whatever this injury is, which I'm pretty sure I have, by the way. I was playing pickup basketball like 4 days ago. I haven't.
I'm glad that you were able to make it in.
So it hurts. I'll say. I could still play on it. He could still play on it. Same guy, many are saying, if I was a foot and a half taller.
Yeah, it's a common misconception.
Right. I think injuries are really the only thing that can stop them. I don't see them taking a step back.
Injuries, also like workload. Like this is inherently shorter off season because of the deep run, and they've gone on deep runs now for several years. The Olympics factors into it.
Maybe Derek White.
I think they have an earlier than usual training camp because of one of the exhibition games they have.
Overseas, right?
Yeah, so that's just like you could get to a point where like early on there's some early struggles, or they reach a point in the schedule where it starts to catch up with them a little bit.
Right. I was big into tweeting this year, like anytime Porzingis would twist his ankle, I'd be like, sit him until January. Like the early months. I'm a firm believer in if anybody rolls an ankle or they sneeze a little too loud, wrap them in bubble wrap until May. Like you could be the 7th seed and be just fine.
Yep.
I don't think they will be the 7th seed just off talent, but you don't need to play these guys 75 games a year.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Lakers in the bubble approach.
Right.
Like you just get in and then go from there.
Figure it out once you get there.
Here's one thing I'll throw at you. Okay. It's kind of a wild card element. I know like the popular thing to say is that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown on the same page now. Everything's rosy, forever good.
Yep.
We're just gonna chase championships for the end till the end of time. Are we sure we're out of the woods yet?
So I had the same thought.
Like I think it's easy right now to say everything's solved. They've won, but like, doesn't that now just incentivize each of these guys to say, "Well, we got the title.
Right.
Now it's time to go get mine. Now it's time for me to go prove that I'm the guy."
Tatum needs his MVP.
Right.
His finals MVP.
Like, I think that there was a sense of desperation to get that first title. That, to their credit, they were like, we'll do anything we need to do to get that title.
Right.
Now we got it. Now I can go out, and now it's, like I said, my turn to show that I'm the best player on this team. And maybe to the team's detriment.
Right.
That's just me throwing crap at the wall, but, like, I don't know. Like, I just don't know if we can safely say that is no longer a narrative. Yeah. Sure, they put the whole them having any sort of issues, they put that narrative to rest for this season. Who's to say it doesn't crop up next year, especially if next year isn't as smooth sailing as this year? That's the other thing. Is like everything went right this year.
Yeah.
What if they lose 5 in a row next year and guys are getting hurt and they're gassed because of that aforementioned schedule? Like, I don't know. That's when you start to learn a lot about these guys.
So like, I had the same thought, like I said, but not for like this summer.
Yeah.
I wasn't like immediately Jason Tatum hates Jaylen Brown.
No,
you know what I mean?
I'm not saying that either, but
somebody posted a clip from The Last Dance on Twitter, and it was essentially the Scottie Pippen thing where right around when Jordan came back, he was like, F this. Don't care that I finally got my money. I was the guy, and then they took that away from him. There's the famous scene in one of those episodes where he doesn't get the final shot against Cleveland in like the first round, one of the years that Jordan was retired. Tony Kukoc, another nice player. He got it. And that really was like the de-evolution of the Chicago Bulls. It's like Tony Kukoc getting a game winner. I think eventually, if they go and win back-to-back, then it becomes like, all right, we did something that the 0.1% of NBA teams have ever done. Now it's time to, you know what I mean? I don't think they're satisfied with one.
Sure.
But I think you do get to a certain point where you've done it all. Say you win 2 or you win 3 out of 4, whatever it might be. You get to a point where Jason Tatum says, all right, now where's my legacy end up? What number am I in the top 10?
Or say they go on another run next year, but they ultimately fall short.
Right.
Like they lose in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Milwaukee Bucks or something. And maybe that's when you start to see the cracks. Like they fell short in the quest to repeat. Now it's back to the drawing board. Maybe there's some other changes that go on, some ancillary changes like in the margins, and they come back the following season, and it's just like they start trying to figure things out again. And I just think that's where maybe you start to learn, like, how truly close are they?
Yeah. I think the next time they get
Which is a weird thing to say, given all of what we've seen over the past several days.
Like,
but, hey, just try to not be victims of the moment here.
Right. You feel like an ass saying it, but it's just human nature. That's just the way it is. Like you said, if they get bounced, say it's in the Eastern Conference Finals next year, does Wick go, all right, I'm not paying all that money. Let's trade Derek White save myself some money. And then the ancillary pieces, like you said, those utility guys are gone, and there's more on the shoulders of these two guys, then you might see it start to crop up. I wouldn't count on it, this betting podcast. I wouldn't bet on it, but it's there. Back of mind, something to think about.
All right, we'll move on from the Celtics and the NBA. We spent a lot of time on that, but I do think it's, that's the story in this region, and it was worth devoting a large chunk of this week's episode to. I did want to talk to you, though, about the NFL offseason, just because you've been down in Foxborough. You did some OTA stuff. Yeah, yep. As we said, just a man who wears many hats here at Nesson. So I don't know. I guess we could go a number of different directions with this. One thing that I stumbled across yesterday in thinking about this week's episode was just like ESPN had a piece with off-season grades, which, I mean, who doesn't love that? Seth Walder, big analytics guy. Yep. He's the one slapping some grades on them. So I'm not going to go through all of the grades or anything like that, but is there a team that you think has had the best offseason? And then I'll also ask you about a team that had the worst offseason. I'll try to mix in some Super Bowl odds here and other futures things just to give you a little, a glimpse at the landscape, the betting landscape. But let's start with the best. Any team jump out to you had a great offseason in your opinion?
So I purposely didn't look at the list because I didn't want my judgment clouded.
Perfect. I like that. You're a man of integrity.
Right. I don't need to be taking Seth Walder's opinion into account.
No.
So I came up with one for each division.
You're your own analytics guru.
Right. Players are cool. Big factor in my analytics.
Yes.
I came up with one for each conference. For the NFC, I think the Bears. I don't expect them to go win the Super Bowl this year, but in terms of setting a foundation in one offseason, it's a hell of a foundation that they set.
Yep.
You've got the quarterback, you've got the receiver, you've got the defense. When you're building a team, other than offensive line, like those are the three things that you're focused on. So I think they did a great job. I think in 2 years, in 2026, that's the team. It should be if everything goes to plan. And then the AFC, the Ravens lost a couple pieces on defense, but Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, who stops that? I don't know. Yep. And then they got Justin Madubuike back, who might be my favorite player in the NFL. He's awesome. Great run defender. Guy can play on the edge inside. But Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson is absurd.
Let's start with the Bears real quick.
Yep.
Is there a chance they win the NFC North, you think, this year?
It's such a deep division. Like, Detroit has a case. Green Bay has a case with the quarterback. I think they have the best quarterback in the division. I think Minnesota's going to stink because I think that quarterback stinks. But I don't think they're going to get enough division wins to win the division. But I think they could be second. Like, I think they could jump Green Bay and Detroit wins it. Or they jump Detroit and Green Bay ends up winning it. I think they're going to be in the mix. I don't think they win it, though.
I don't know if you know, but this is a Jordan Love podcast.
This is a Jordan Love podcast.
Me and Mike are very high on Jordan Love, so
flying around.
So I will certainly not be betting against the Packers.
Right. Your Packers.
But yeah, my Packers. I've seized control from Mike.
Yep.
Bears 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. As far as division prices, they are plus 330 to win the North. Lions favored at plus 135, Packers plus 195, and the Vikings you mentioned, I think we're in agreement on them. They're probably going to stink. They're plus 950 to win the division. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, they're clearly building something there. It starts with the quarterback. When you have that draft capital, and just, I mean, it wasn't a team that was devoid of talent to begin with, so they had pieces in place. So I tend to agree with you there. A few other teams. I mean, the Texans clearly going for it. So, like, I find the AFC South to be kind of interesting. It's just you have the Texans who are very clearly going for it, but I think the Titans are sort of building towards something as well. Making some, I guess your faith in them is all about whether you believe in Will Levis or not, which I don't know if I do just yet, but I like some of the moves that they made, sort of understanding that the door's open in that division.
Yeah.
The other team that it kind of stands out to me is the Jets, because I just think that they understand their identity, and I'm not sure how good they're going to be, but the fact that they're willing to push all their chips in the middle of the table and be like, all right, we got Aaron Rodgers for maybe a year.
Right.
Let's go get Tyron Smith, and let's go get Hassan Reddick, and let's sign Mike Williams. And honestly, I think they should have made a play for Bill Belichick.
I don't hate that.
Yeah, like
I don't hate that at all. I think
if you're putting all your eggs in the 2024 basket, screw it.
Yeah.
Do it, because I don't know that Robert Saleh is the guy. So
that coach and quarterback relationship seems like it's hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
Like it's held together by Scotch tape. And
so I don't know if it's gonna work, but I like the fact that they're like, let's go for it.
I appreciate either it's gonna end in disaster or a Super Bowl.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's fun.
Let's
That's
do
fun
it.
for us to watch from 10,000 feet. But I'm looking at the numbers right now. 20-1 for New York. What were they last year? 11?
So this is another thing, and I think I had mentioned this to Mike a few weeks ago, that like they almost there's a little post-hype sleeper feel to them in the Super Bowl market.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that they're what I think ultimately might hold them back. Oddly enough, is I don't know how good Aaron Rodgers is anymore. Like even prior to the injury, he kind of. I mean, we were seeing the regression in his final season in Green Bay. So I don't know what he's really going to provide. But on the flip side, I think that defense has the potential to be legit.
Yeah, I mean, they were last year.
So he just has to be good enough, which I think he is fully capable of being.
Yeah.
And so, I'd take my chances with the Jets at 20-1 versus a team like, I don't know. Like I look at them 21 relative to like Atlanta at 24-1. Like,
Right.
I don't know. I just think there might be something there.
Atlanta having better odds to win the Super Bowl than the Rams is insane to me.
Wild.
Like,
Wild.
I don't, and that's why I don't make the market. But what are we talking about?
Speaking of going with Atlanta, teams that had questionable off seasons, anybody stand out to you as far as they just completely fell on their face?
Are we talking off the field or on the field?
Whatever you want, I guess.
My mind immediately went to the Chiefs. Like they didn't really do anything. They drafted a fast wide receiver, but everybody got arrested. So
That's true, yeah.
just a tough offseason for them. But on the field, Dallas just doing nothing to help their case. They if anything, they've lost players. I know Trevon Diggs is coming back, but like they're in a money-wise, they're tight, and they haven't done anything. I know Sean's not going to enjoy hearing this, our resident Cowboys fan, but I think with the amount of talent they have on the roster to not supplement it and make a play for a Super Bowl, I don't feel that they've done that. Go all in, as Jerry Jones has been telling everybody. I'm down on them overall.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at Buffalo maybe.
Yeah.
Not only losing some key players, their defense is kind of going through a little bit of a identity change, but also by virtue of some of the deals they made, they ended up helping some fellow AFC contenders.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned the fast wide receiver that Kansas City got. Well, they got him because Buffalo traded him the draft pick.
Right.
In Houston, they're kind of going all in the AFC South, largely because they acquired Stephon Diggs from Buffalo. So like they got worse, other teams got better, and they also helped them get better.
Right.
That's kind of a swing and a miss for me.
The only thing with Buffalo is I just respect the quarterback too much. Like he's just
he might just be that good that they're able to still win the division in
outside
spite
of
all
their
that.
entire secondary is just rookies now.
Yeah.
Not great.
Yeah. So I don't know. That was so if you want to go back to the Super Bowl market, Buffalo is sitting at 15-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Also, just for additional context, the Chiefs sitting there at 6-1, 49ers at 6-1, so co-favorites. Baltimore plus 950, the Lions at 13-1, Bengals 14-1, Eagles also 14-1. You mentioned the Cowboys, I mentioned the Texans. They're both sitting there at 16-1. So that's just a little context for the NFL season. Yeah. You're a football guy, so I wanted to get your 2 cents.
I appreciate it. It's a good place to start. And by the way, New England-based podcasts, Patriots at 250 to 1, second worst odds in the NFL. So not great.
There you go. I'd probably stay away from that one.
Throw $5 on there.
There you go. Well, yeah,
because then you win.
Like
you get to make a bunch
shot.
of other bets, like I like to do. So.
Sure. All right, we'll wrap this up. We'll get out of here. But one thing, real quick, I did want to note. I don't know if you have these picks. I posed this to you in our chat.
Yeah.
There's some stuff going on locally. We got the Travelers Championship going on in Connecticut.
Yep.
For those of you who are golf fans, we also have NASCAR in New Hampshire this weekend. Give me one bet for each, real quick. You don't even have to explain
bet,
yourself.
Keegan Bradley.
Oh,
Sean's
God,
going to follow
course.
him. My name's Keagan. You can't not. Last time he played at this event, he runner-up, and then 7th place last time he played locally. So good.
Well, he won last year at the Travelers.
Right. Not the event. I meant the course.
Oh, gotcha.
I think. Again, not a golf guy. And then NASCAR. I'll jump right into it. Let me find the name.
There you go.
William Byron, 12-1. He won the Cookout 400. Cookout's an awesome fast food chain. So I took William Byron because Cookout's sick.
All right. Cool. I got Ludwig Oberg to win outright
No clue.
at the Travelers Championship. He's 14-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Okay. Comes in 4 top 10s in the last 7 tournaments. One of the best ball strikers on tour. I think as long as he gets his putting down, he could be a factor this weekend. NASCAR, my bet. I'll actually be there, so this is nice.
Right.
So I need a little bit of a rooting
Heavy
interest
Nesson
going into this.
at NASCAR.
I like Bubba Wallace to finish top 5 plus 550 at FanDuel Sportsbook. He's run well out in the next-gen car the last couple of years. 40-1 to win outright if you want to get really, really weird, but I'd just steer towards the top 5 finish, which he had in 2022 when he finished 3rd. So there you go. So sure. I always knew he would circle to golf and NASCAR on your first appearance on the spread. So
yeah, the 2 most important things in my life.
I know. This is why I posed the questions to you. All right, Keagan. Well, we're gonna get out of here. We got stuff to do.
Unfortunately.
Yep, we're gonna go. I think we might have barbecue coming to the office, which is nice. Which is nice.
If not, I'll make sure to update people.
Yeah. If not, we'll outsource. We'll get lunch somewhere.
There you go.
But no, thank you for filling in for Mike.
No problem.
Mike Cole will be back next week, we believe. But hopefully,
who knows?
Hopefully we have you on as an honorary guest in the near future.
Awesome.
All right, that's Keagan Stiefel. I'm Ricky Doyle for this episode of The Spread. Like I said, I will be back next week. Keagan will be back at some point. And if you want to take our advice, go for it. If you don't, that's okay too.
Check out another podcast.
Check out another podcast. Yes. And also rate, subscribe, do all that good stuff on Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow us on YouTube. Just go to Nesson.com. Watch Nesson. Nesson it all. Nesson it up.
The rundown.
Nesson around. All right, we're out of here. See you guys.